Most FTX customers will be getting some of their money back. The announcement comes nearly 2 years after the cryptocurrency exchange collapsed. Nearly all customers are eligible. Those that claim $50,000 or less will be repaid their original amount plus interest. But there is a catch. The amount paid back to customers will be in dollars based on the value of the cryptocurrencies at the time of FTX's collapse in 2022. And at that time, one Bitcoin was valued at about $16,000. For comparison, that price now hovers around $60,000. Here to discuss this payout with us is Professor of Law and Associate Dean of Vanderbilt Law University, Yesha Yadav. Thank you so much for being with us, Professor.
Good morning, Anne-Marie and Vlad. It's great to be here today. It's such a pleasure to be with you this morning.
So let's get into this. Where did these funds come from and how were they pulled together?
So that's a great question. FTX has made some pretty astute investments going into the bankruptcy. In addition, obviously, it has benefited from just dumb luck as the price of Bitcoin has surged over these last 17 months. So, for example, FTX had bought the equity of an AI firm called Anthropic that was able to be sold for around $800 million. Its investment in a hedge fund called Modulo Capital made it over $400 million. But as you noted, Vlad, the biggest victory here has really come because the price of Bitcoin and other tokens that FTX held, such as Solana, have really surged since January 2024. So what we've seen is that the value of this estate has really grown over this last 5-month period, and that has obviously bolstered the value of the payouts that is available now to the creditors throughout the bankruptcy.
So that's the good news, because normally in situations like this, the creditors are kind of screwed, right?
Yeah.
There's no money for them. But now, because the value has gone up so much, there's plenty of money to go around, maybe even to compensate them 100% based on what they've invested. But the kind of crappy thing is, it's like they were giving FTX a loan all this time, and FTX has been able to make money off of their investment. Why did they decide to? First off, how does the conversion from Bitcoin to dollars actually work, and what was the reasoning for having the payout amounts connected to when FTX collapsed, that date?
It's, Anne-Marie, that is such an important question, and it's one that the customers of FTX have been wringing their hands over because they're mad about this. Many customers are mad that their claim value has been fixed at the November 22 date. That has meant that the price of that claim is something like $17,000, which is why the lawyers today can say that they're able to pay out over 118% of that sum. But what the customers today are arguing that they should have got a valuation that is marked to the current market, which means they would get the benefit of the growth of this asset. In addition, obviously, they're really peed off because they're not being able to get paid in the coins that they had bought in the first place. Obviously, the conversion makes it easier to pay out in cash. The ability to pay out in cash is just simpler from a logistics standpoint. But the customers are really, really annoyed by this because they, bought Bitcoin and other coins. That's what they want to be paid in. They want to have the upswing in those prices, but they're not getting it. So even though the story looks really good on the surface, the customers are really unhappy about this outcome.
Now that FTX is saying it will pay back some of its creditors, is there a timeline for what happens next and when that takes place?
So Vlad, that's a really tough question to answer. The first hurdle to get over is to have the judge actually approve this plan. This plan is going to come before the court. The judge is going to look at it. There may actually be some pushback from some of the creditors to this plan. As Anne-Marie noted, not everyone is going to be happy with some of the details here. But the payout itself can sometimes take years. And in this context, this may be quite likely because we're dealing with potentially millions of creditors that have to be paid back, lots and lots of claims that have to be handled. In the case of Enron, for example, another bankruptcy that John Ray, the person who managed the FTX bankruptcy, dealt with, the payouts took multiple years. So we could really be looking at a pretty long timeline for the customers of FTX to really get their money back. So even though, again, the picture looks kind of good on the face of it, there's a lot of uncertainty still that we have to deal with.
So usually when things like this happen, there are, I guess, tiers of creditors. You know what I mean? And often kind of the regular schmegular investor is at the bottom. But
Right.
so I'm curious, not everyone is getting money back from this. So who's left out?
So, Anne-Marie, you should really be a bankruptcy lawyer. That was a great analysis. So, here there's one big fundamental problem. The FTX customers, the ones who put their crypto with the exchange, they have been classified as unsecured creditors. What that means is that the crypto that they put with FTX has been classified as the property of FTX, and that these customers that thought they were keeping that property, that was their property, they're simply classified as unsecured contractual claimants. So even though, we're talking about these unsecured folks that are normally at the bottom of a ladder, in a bankruptcy like this, normally they would get back cents on the dollar, sometimes not even that. Here they're getting back 118% of the original claim. So that's one thing. But the bigger problem here is they're unsecured claimants. Were they to have been secured claimants at the very top of the tree, they would have got back potentially a lot more money. In other words, maybe even keeping the growing value of that crypto investment. That hasn't happened because of various aspects of our regulatory process. They have been classified as unsecured claimants. And of course, that means that they're at the very bottom of the ladder, Anne-Marie, as you said. And that is very disappointing for these crypto customers throughout.
Wow. When it comes to crypto, it's at your own risk, right? And we're all sort of learning about it, some people the hard way. Yesha Yadav, thank you so much.